Okay, so welcome to the Intercommunity Platform Workshop, and today we're gonna be going through the trampoline and how to build it. This is the end result that we're gonna have. It's gonna be that mushroom that we have down there, where everybody can see it. Topics that we're gonna cover is gonna be layers, tags, animations, animator controller, and the last two is more like programming, but I don't think we might cover those two. So this is the object that we're gonna be building today. So it's gonna be an empty game object as the parent, and we're gonna have two child. And as you can see, the top one, that's gonna have the animator, and that's what we're gonna be animating. And we have another one, and we're gonna use layers to organize them correctly. Okay, so setting up Unity, if you can open the Unity scaffold project, and you don't have to do this, but it's just so we are like on the same page. You can put the 2x3 to window, and then you should be going to begin. Actually, let me change I changed the slides from my drive and not on this drive. So if you can go to ITU tutorials folder, and then select scenes, there should be one called Trampoline tutorial. By the way, if you get stuck, let me know, and I will come and try to help you. So are we all there? Are we all good? We're good? Yes? No? No?
I don't know if I have this project.
Oh.
I think I missed it last week.
Oh, okay.
I have 3 different versions of this project, and I don't know which one is the one that we actually.
Well, you're good, I think. If you click in intro to this thing.
Okay.
So ITU tutorials, and then scenes, and there should be a trampoline. Yeah, so we click it, and you're good. Okay. So first of all, creating the mushroom. Please create an empty game object and name it mushroom. You can create it in the hierarchy by right-clicking and doing create empty. Then after that, if you can go to ITU and then sprites, you should be able to see 2 sprites that we're going to be using. There's a mushroom stem and a mushroom top. Drag it to the mushroom game object that you just created, but one at a time. Don't drag both of them at the same time. So let me see if I can also. Oh, there you go. I loaded it. Yeah. So I can also do it with you guys. Okay, so we're gonna create a new game object, mushroom. Okay. Then you go to sprites. It should be these 2. Just drag one at a time and just drag it and put it in the mushroom. As you can see, it will automatically make a game object child right under it, and that saves us some time. Okay. Double check that they're also in the origin, meaning that they're in the position 0, 0, 0. Sometimes it messes that up. Now, if you guys have it, you can click in the arrow at the top corner, and you can move it while selecting the mushroom, which is the parent object. Drag it somewhere close to the floor. So just position it wherever you want. That will make sense. Then you can grab the child stem or top, and you can move it however you want until it looks something along the lines of this. Doesn't matter where you put it, just as long as it looks like this, it should be fine. Is everybody good? Okay, now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna add a collider to the mushroom, to the parent object. So you can add a component and add a collider, and if you can put it around the area of the mushroom top. So in the head, parent, you can do a component, collider. The best one to do in this occasion will be the polygon collider, like we talked about in the previous workshops. It's the one that gives you more mobility. You can see it right here. You can click on Edit Collider, and now you can actually modify it however you want. So just try to put it in some sort of way that it covers the whole area of the mushroom top. You can left click to add more points into the polygon to make the shape more specific. Sure, you cool helping them too?
Oh, yeah.
If you need any questions, you can ask Sean and he can help you as well. So just try to. Doesn't have to be perfect, but this will do.
They only need to do the top part, they don't need to make the stem.
Yeah, it's gonna be in the parent object mushroom.
Okay.
So not on the top, not on stem, it's gonna be on mushroom. Okay. Okay, I think that's enough for setting up. So now tags. A tag is a reference word that you can assign to one or more game objects. Tag helps you identify game objects for scripting purposes. So whenever you have a scene, right, it will be quite often that you want to check what is interacting with your game object. So for example, like the trampoline we're going to be building right now, right, we wish that when the player touches it, it sends them up, right? But it could be a possibility that we have, for example, Goombas or Koopas enemies, right? And when they touch it, we don't want that effect to happen. So a very nice way to handle this type of interaction is through tags. We know what is touching what. And how we do that is that every game object, you can give it a tag, and you create your own tags. Unity gives you some default ones, like main camera, editor only, finish, player, game controller, hotbox. This is the ones I made. So you can also add tags and play with them. So if you can select the player game object in the scene and change his tag to her tag to player. So the player beginner, which is, by the way, this character that we made in a previous workshop. You should have it there regardless. If you can see at the top, there's a tag, and it should be player. It may already be player, but just in prefab. Yeah. So that way now, whenever we're either working with program or when Unity using coding, we can actually check that. We can check if the enemy that we touch is a player tag or things like that. We can also find game objects this way. Unity has this function that is .find, which basically finds find based on tags. I forgot exactly what it is done, but you can also find game objects in the whole scene by just doing tags. So really helpful, really powerful stuff. Okay. Everybody good so far? Yeah. Okay. So sprite layers. So as you can see, your mushroom might look a little off. It might be a little bit, mine probably looks weird too. So yeah, it's like kind of like behind the level. That might not be what we want to do. So like any art program, there's layers, right? Who's familiar with layers? Can you explain?
Layers are like kind of groups of images that have different like depth in the scene. You can kind of like have certain, so you can have certain things in the foreground, certain things in the background, and then like things in the like where the player would be, like the player has a layer.
Yeah. So that's basically how it works. In Unity 2D though, there's no Z-axis, right? So it's kind of hard to visualize the depth. So how it actually does it on the core is that the camera renders things in a specific order based on the layers. So if you have a background in layer, for example, -10, that will come before the layer 0. So it will check all the layers of all the objects, and it will draw them into the scene one by one, right, and put them on top of each other. So we can control that. So if you look at the top, or let's look at the stem, you can click in order in layer, and you can move it to 1. So now it will be like in front of the level. Now there's a problem though. If you have the top and you move it, you will realize that now it's behind it. So you can also move the top. You can put the top in layer 1 or layer 2 to make sure that it's always in front of it. There's also this sort of thing called sorting layers. So think about ordering layer being specifically to, let me take a step back. So if you notice, every object that you create that is a sprite render has a sorting layer and ordering layer, right? By default, they will always be in sorting layer default and ordering layer 0, right? So we saw that ordering layer kind of modifies where they are on top of each other. But let's say if you have, I don't know, like 20 game objects and you trying to put them in different layers, that gets kind of tedious, right? Always trying to move stuff around. So there's also this thing called sorting layer. So think of sorting layers being kind of like your pages. So sorting layers, you have, for example, default, background, foreground. So foreground will always be in front of default. So what that means is that you can put multiple objects in a sorting layer, and all of those objects will come before another sorting layer. So everything by default is in the default layer. We can change that property. So all the objects that are in another layer are in front of them. There's also layer tagging. So layer tagging can be really useful when dealing with objects interactions. So let's think about a scenario, right? Let's say you have colliders, right? We all know what a collider is, right? Can someone give me a brief explanation what a collider is?
Like tell you when an object with another object and then they'll like interact.
Yeah. So let's say we have NPCs, right? They should have colliders that check when you're close enough to them, so maybe you can interact with them, right? But let's say you also have enemies, right? And they definitely need colliders, right? Because we need to know when they're close enough. But what if we didn't want the NPCs to interact with the enemies? What if we wanted them to ignore each other? But they both have colliders, right? So one of the options we could do is to change the tag. But then again, like we were talking about, tags are very annoying to deal with. You don't want to change the tag of every single object or writing code. If you have the tag player, please ignore him to every single different object that you make, right? That's very tedious. So what you can do is use layer tagging. So layer tagging puts basically all the game physics. So layers can interact with one another, right? So if you have, for example, a layer level, or let's say we have a layer called cars, and that layer has all the car objects that are running around the street, right? And then you have a layer called player. If you don't want them to interact with each other, we can actually do that. We can.
We were recording.
We can deactivate it through this window. And to show you guys, we go to Edit, and you go Project Settings, Physics 2D, and it will show this very scary looking inspector window. Don't be afraid of it. You can ignore all this at the very top. This is basically just physics stuff. Like we can see in here, there's velocity, gravity. Gravity is put to negative 9.8, which is the real life acceleration, right? So you can change all that if you want it, and that will change the whole physics of the game. If you're feeling wild, go for it. I wouldn't recommend it, but and down here is the really important stuff. So these are all the layers. Can you all see that? As you can, it's like here at the bottom.
Yeah, how did they get to physics?
Oh, altogether? Edit. So edit, and then project settings, and it should be physics 2D.
Everyone on that page?
So spoilers, physics is not the same as physics 2D. They work very differently. If you're working in 2D games, use everything that is 2D. So let me bring this up a little bit more so you can see it. Oh, wow, okay. Never mind, it's working weirdly. So these are all the layers that you have. So if you see they have a check, that means that those physics can interact with one another. So if we uncheck it, then they are not able to interact anymore. So you can see we have the NPCs, and we have the enemies because we cross it off. Now, even if a collider NPC crashes with a collider enemy, it won't register. And that's really helpful when you're making games and you're trying to deal with a lot of objects and you don't want some to interact with one another. Something really good to know. It's not necessary, but it's something that you may want to use for like big projects when you're working with a lot of stuff. Okay. Oh, take it easy. To create layers, right? Let's say you wanted to create your own. You go to, you can click any game object, and up here you can see there's layers and there's tags. I guess I should have told you guys how to make tags. So you will click, and at the very bottom you can see there a tag. You can click on it. Command Unity. Okay, and as you can see, we have some tags in there. We have hardbox, hitbox, floor, environment. If you wanted to make your own, you could make your own tag, like I don't know, tag test. So you have that tag, and now when you click any game object, you can actually click in the tag, and that will be an option, and you can click on it, and now it will be tag test. To create layers, it's exactly the same process. You will click and go to add layers, and as you can see in here, this is kind of like the order of layers. So, okay, this can get confusing. So there's tags, sorted layers, and layers, right? So layers in here are the ones that, the physics ones, right? The ones that you let them interact with one another and let them collide. That's these ones. Sorting layers is the ones that we were talking about before, the ones that interact with tags. So you can change the order in which they render in the screen. So yeah. Okay. So enough setting out all the layers. Let's get to animation. So to open the animation window, go to Window, Animation, Animation, Window, Animation, Animation. Or you can do Control 6 if you want to be shortcut. So Windows, Animation, Animation. So now you have this new window into your screen. You can put it wherever you want. I prefer to have it down here because we're gonna be looking at the scene while creating the animation to get instant feedback of how the animation is
Do you have the
working.
same layout as you?
Yes, 2x3, hopefully. If you don't have the same layout, you can just go right-click Layout, 2x3. Otherwise, it changes really matter. Just as long as you can see the animator and you can see the scene at the same time, we'll be good. Okay. Let's see. So select the mushroom top game object and click Create in the animation window. So the mushroom top, actually, yeah, and click down here, Create, where the animation window is. This one. While you're selecting mushroom top, it will open your folders to ask where you're gonna save it. Just go back to ITU tutorials and select the animations folder, and then you can save it here. Oh, we already have one. Huh. Save it as mushroom top 1.
Or like workshop animation?
That's too long of a name though. Huh. Do you guys have it? These two?
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Because I know the. Let's try something. Can you guys delete it? Yeah, you can delete it. Okay, cool. The reason why is because we're gonna use a script that's gonna actually read that same name, so I don't want it to conflict with anything. So just create a new one called Mushroom Top Animation or Anim. Mushroom top. Okay, very good. Good, good. Okay. Okay, so if you notice now, the screen kind of changed. So now we have this weird setup with lines. And if you can click the record button, you will see that it will change into red. So what we're doing right now actually is that Unity now is ready to record. So whatever changes we do in the scene is gonna kind of memorize them and then try to go from point A to point B. So what I mean by that is like, if you can see, let me get this up. Okay, can everybody see those two? It's kind of small, sadly. So this is the frames. So it's 1 second, right? 60 frames. So if you were to move, don't do this, but if you were to move it, you notice that it created this weird figure that's called a key. So what that does is that when this animation starts, it says, okay, I'm gonna start, when this animation plays, this motion part is gonna start in this place in the workspace of Unity. And then let's say I move it all the way to half a second, which is 30, and now I move it all the way over here, it created another one. So now what I'm telling you is that between the time of 0 frames and 30 frames, you're gonna do that transition. So if I were to play that, see, it just does it. Kind of weird. This is a good way to do animations if you don't have an artist to build like 60 frames of art, and you can just do this if you needed to. So that's basically what we're gonna be. This is how it works. Okay. You could also move it around if you wanted to have it more frames or less frames, and you can see it working. Yeah. All right. Okay, so that's how we're gonna make the animation. Okay. So you can see in here there's a add property component. If you click on it, there will be different options. There's the transform option. As you guys know, hopefully transform is this transpose component. So that means that we can change anything from position, like we were doing in the example. We can also change rotation, and we can also change scale to make it bigger and smaller, right? So let's add transform position. Okay. If you go to the motion top while recording, move the position to 0.5 of the top. So while touching this one, do 0.5. Oh, hold on, what did I do? So while here, actually, don't add property, just click record, and then while selecting the motion top, move it to 0.5. Yes, that will do it. Yeah, just change to 0.5. So as you can see, it actually already made the key. So we're gonna be moving it down a little bit to make the next key, and then playing the animation. So then move the recording line to 15 frames. So somewhere probably like right there. Let me maximize it. Okay, so now move the line to around 15 frames. And create a new keyframe by changing the transform Y to 0.35. So now you click at this and do 0.35. And then change the scaling to of the Y to 0.7. So if you play it, it will be doing some sort of like bouncing animation really fast. Okay. Then move the recording to 30 frames. And you change the transform to 0.5 and the scale of Y to 1. I know this is a little tedious, but this is like a safe way to know that we are kind of like having the same animation. After following these steps, if it feels a little off, feel free to change it a little bit. If it looks kind of like too far away of the stem, maybe move the stem a little farther up from the mushroom. After clicking stop recording.
Any questions so far? Nope. Okay.
Here 0.5, and then here back to 1. So what we're doing is that if you like notice the key at 30 and the key at 0 are the same. So what we're doing is that we're going to 15, changing the shape and the scale, and then going back to its normal when we go back to 30. So now if we play it, yeah, it got like a really cool looking movement. So if you have that, you can click stop recording. And you can click at your mushroom stem. Actually, let's see. Okay. Make sure that your mushroom top, while you're not recording, is in 0, 0, 0. And the stem is a little down. Okay. Hopefully that makes it. 3. How do you fix this? That's 0.5. It's because it's in.
Oh, because you moved the sprite, right?
Yeah. Wait. I didn't move the sprite. Is everybody having trouble with that? Like trying to put it in the correct place? What you guys can do instead is that instead of setting the specific 0.5 and 0.7 scales, you can just build it from 0. So you can delete all the keys. So if you select the keys and press back, it will delete them. Sorry about that. Because since we all have different positions of the mushrooms, then it really matters where we move it. So what you can do is that while you're recording, you can click the mushroom top, and using the tool to move, you can just move it a little bit down or up. So, okay, let's reset. Did everybody delete the animation? Okay, so make a new key by doing by clicking record, and then move the position to 0. That didn't create a key. Move it to 0.1. All right, and that will make a new key. Now, if you move it to 15 frames. Grab the mushroom and just move it a little bit down however you want it to. I guess 0.1 can be a good enough. Then change the scale to, I guess 0.7 works. And then if you move the frame to 30 frames, put it back to the numbers that you chose for the keyframe 1. So I chose 0.1, so I just do 0.1. And then for scale, I chose 1. If you need help, let me know. issues, or are you guys good? Good?
Can you fix your collider?
Okay. No, I know, I saw that. So now, if you notice, if you click in your mushroom, make sure to fix your collider if it's a little off, because mine is. Sorry about that. Okay. So, is everybody good so far? Yeah, okay. So if you can go to Windows, Animation, Animator, it will open a new scene that looks, resembles something kind of like this. So Windows, Animations, Animator, and you open this weird scene. If you click at the mushroom top while being in that animation, you will see that there's some blocks already there. So an animator controller allows you to arrange and maintain a set of animation clips and associate animation transitions for a character or objects. So what it basically is, it's like a state machine. Is anybody familiar with what a state machine is? Can you explain it to us?
It's been a while, but like,
Oh, okay.
it's like you're in one state, and if a condition is met, then you move to the next one. But if it isn't, then you stay in that state.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically the state machine. It keeps track of in which state you are. So we have a state machine for animations. So as you can see in this example, you have walking and running. So those are the different states you can be on. And there's some arrows in here, which we call transitions. So if you were walking and then you wanted to change the character to running, you'll probably have some sort of like statement that will make you change from the walking state to the running state, and that will trigger the animation to run. As you can see in here, there's a default one. That means that as soon as your scene starts, if it has an animator component in it, then it will go into this one. That's why it's called entry. So if you start the scene and you click play, it will automatically go to default. If one of these statements becomes, if this statement becomes true, it will go there. If this one becomes true, it will go back to running. Then false and false and back to default. Okay. So we're gonna make our own. So if you can right click in the animator window and click create state, and then empty. So right click, create state, empty. So we have a new state now that we can put into our animator state machine. We call this animator controller or animator. So difference, animation is a single animation of a character, right? Animator is the state machine. It's two different components. So each one of these can be an animation. This is the one that we just created right now for animation. While the whole screen, that's the animator. So if you can click in new state and rename it to, can we rename it? You can rename it.
You have to rename it in the inspector.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Thank you. So you can rename it to idle in all caps. And if you can right click on it and select set as layer default state, it will change to orange, and now whenever you start the game scene, it will actually start with the idle state. So the idle is gonna be an empty animation, so it's gonna be just not moving. What we're gonna do is that whenever the player with the tag player touches this animation, this mushroom collider, we're gonna send a signal that will make a transition to the mushroom to pass. So then right-click in the idle animation and click Make Transition. As you do that, you will see that you will have an arrow. You can move it around, and then select the mushroom top animation. So now we're making a bridge between those two animations. Okay. Then you're gonna make the same thing the other way around. So right click on the mushroom top animation, and then make one to idle. So then we have animation parameters. Animation parameters are variables that are defined with an animator controller. So like we were talking before, the Boolean statements that we need, right? The true or false statements to move this stuff are gonna be those animation parameters. So if you can click on the animator parameters plus, you can create new conditions to control the state machine states. We do so through scripts. So if you have some programmer, they will probably use a function called setBool, and then in parentheses they'll put whatever the name of the animation Boolean statement is. So you click plus, and you'll make a new one. Let's see. Oh no, it has to be in parameters. So up here, there's parameters. You can click plus, and you can click bool. And name it player jump it. Just like this. So capital P, player, and capital J, jump it. So now what we're gonna do is that each transition, which is our arrows. Where's our motion?
You're in the wrong layer.
I'm in the wrong. Oh. Wait, am I in a new layer? Oh yes. Okay. Thank you. So you can click any transition, and you can see there's quite some information here. So this is specifies on where this is coming from and where it's going to. And then as conditions, we can set up whichever conditions we need to change the state machine, right? So if you can click plus, you can already auto defaults player jump, you can set up to true. And that's what we want. Then if you've noticed right here, there's a condition that says has exit time, and it's marked to yes. Feel free to change it to uncheck it. What that does is that when you have a game in Unity, you have an animation, you can actually define if you want to end such animation. So let's say you have an animation of attacking, right? And regardless of what happened, you want that animation to go the whole way, then you will have it as exit time, meaning that this cannot be interrupted and the state machine cannot change to other state until this animation is ended. If we don't check it, then that means that anytime that any state machine in the script tells us to change to another state, we do it, regardless of which position we're in the animation. Then select the other transition, the one from motion top to idle, and add a condition, which is player jump false, and uncheck has exit time. You can double check it right there, just the steps, just to make sure that you guys have it in the right order. This workshop ends at 4:30, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 17 minutes.
So step 7, adding the script. So if you can go to the mushroom parent game object and add the mushroom trampoline script. So go to the parent and select a component, the trampoline. There should be one called mushroom trampoline. You can select it and set its jump power to I said 12. But you can put it to whatever you want, and feel free to like mess around with it to see The player jumps. Let's see if it works.
Do you need to add the animation to it?
I don't think so. Let's see. So if you move around and you jump, it will actually do the animation. Let me do maximize some play. So hopefully, if everything went well, once your player jumps into it, it will take place into the animation. Did everybody got it? No.
I was just trying to get it.
Yeah.
You have
we were saying like, oh, if
You're a bit over here.
characters have like a base spray and you have like totally
Oh, so like, is it just going off of it? So,
look,
let's go look at your animation control.
the map is
So, this one has.
Look at the player.
actually that
5 players. Okay.
What is your, what is the like item? When you
so
go
there were games sort of that came like a little bit later with that. And those are essentially like just the measure cast that
Oh.
You have a little.
Oh.
Like I just noticed, there's now a strong something.
Oh. No, you should be.
characters.
You should be fine. This is true. That's fine. Oh, oh. Wait, I got animation. Let's try to do that. That should be fine. Oh, I see. You name it controller 2, right? Oh, he's saying. Look at the controller. The controller motion to that. That's the only player, right?
And then, animation, how you have animation in it.
You have 2 of them. Just mine.
We used your same one, but
Mine is machine.
I don't remember what it's called.
Oh. Okay, I see.
Oh.
That was the wrong end. I think it's if I just change
Looks like
the
you got
other
the right.
If I just change it to the other end.
When you made it, because there was already one, you made a second one.
No problem.
I see, that's very cool.
Right over here as well. You didn't animate it? Huh?
No, it's not animated.
So let's take a look at your animation.
So
Look
this
at the
is
controller and see if they have
the end.
motion controller 1 and 2, because they might have a second one.
Okay. So, let's look at your animation. Let's see its motion. Oh, it has.
You didn't even jump.
Has the bounce.
You're doing very good. You have more
What is it? What is the goal of this game? What kind of like
component.
what's like hard nose?
I guess it's not free.
No, with something
You
like
name the motion top. You didn't even ask you, right?
like that's kind of appropriate.
That's what I did. I switched.
A lot of questions that are brought up.
Okay, so that's the
Oh,
one.
there's motion 1.
Yeah, pretty much all
True
this
is the
stuff
part
already.
No, I'm guessing that because you know how there was one before?
Yeah.
He automatically has one already made. So when you make a second one, he automatically calls the motion top
We
2.
also are going to ask.
That actually shouldn't be a problem.
To have this game.
Oh, is this the same?
Because presented to income is the ones that what's word. Sure.
Let's see.
Not this one.
Oh, for the
Yeah,
other,
for the other
for the other one? It is this.
Yeah.
I don't.
Oh, yeah. That's your animation.
I tried.
Everyone's doing animation here, so.
Did the
Oh.
Oh, wait. This one has no animation,
It's
right?
just 30.
It's real, right? Like you sometimes do it.
Next time you come to
But it does not.
Oh, it keeps adding on.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Huh.
Doing negative is weird, like get stuff on the
Yeah, I don't know how to work this. This is
Luis, how are they doing over here?
I don't know what's wrong with this. It seems the stack is good, the animator is good. It's not playing.
It's not playing? Okay, so check for motions. So I should have no motions.
Double.
this other leg.
And then check if they have the animator. See
Oh.
Hey.
I shine.
No. But that's really. Okay. I know. I'm gonna probably change. No, but I should because it's running based on the player's jump, so it doesn't matter what you name it. Because that only reflects this one. What is weird is that
I wonder why.
this one is not double.
So even with the name, it's fine.
Oh no, there you go. It's this one. I don't know what this one is. Okay, so is this the controller right now?
It doesn't look like Tina, but
Yeah, so that's why. Okay.
It's coming along.
So I don't know. This is probably the one that we deleted.
it's good enough for
So it
the
just
stuff.
doesn't know where it is.
Yeah. So let me just.
She's on the pizza.
I love it.
Should you have him do it?
No, it's fine.
It needs to be applied.
Yes. Oh, if you want to try it.
As they teach me in ICS tutoring, you're not supposed to touch any keyboards.
Does the animation play twice? Because
I think your lab was instructor, right?
Yeah, you and Tyler.
So.
Oh, yeah.
Distracted the system.
Are you guys
a lot.
Yeah,
Did you click animation right?
So right click
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And you gotta set up the bullet.
Okay, so what are what?
I like the other page.
Steal that chair. Wait, what's that?
So like the.
Make sure exit time is also a check because you don't want
We're
to.
checking on the flag.
So does it like stack the animation, or just would it preset it?
Kind of. So the way he explained it, like if you don't have exit times unchecked, it's like like a sword swing.
I don't have
right?
any nice face
But if you
on
have it
here.
turned off, like if you do this and a different move, you can change the animation.
Okay.
But if you have it on, it's like you have to finish
Because
this before
someone
you
sent
do
me
this.
an image
So it creates like
of
a
his face.
If you're playing like Dark Souls, that's
Yeah, so it's like queued up basically.
Yeah, they queue it up.
It's probably there, but
I wait to fix that. This happens
I'm
sometimes
trying to
because
hurry.
we need to click the event, right?
You got a
Go
whole
to
Your time.
don't play because we're not here. So when animation, when things like that happen, click on that one, yeah, and then go to the check the arrows and see. The other one. Do you think what has these two? So the thing is that you go from idle to fishing, right? That is equals a little more like interesting. So it's kind of like fishing it together. So that's why it's really good work. So what you can do is shorter, yeah, move that one more step, right?
So top
you
hand
guys
shorter
just
this
voted
one,
on
you can make
So
it
have a
smaller.
controller. There's
Can you
click on
That's
the
a wolf.
Everything that one's
is
more.
it this opera?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll
has
just
the
put
animation.
it as a sticker instead of
When
animated.
it has it,
Okay.
mushroom top.
Oh, wait, that's not.
So because it didn't have exit time, it will run the plan.
So it looks like you have.
You need-
You were gonna use
Does
it.
it have animation controller?
So exit time forces to play the whole animation. So because it's 30 seconds, this is for some reason set up to 1 second. And you have 30 seconds, right? So we'll play 2 times.
Yeah.
So you will that block and then go down.
Oh, you don't have an
If you don't have exit
Ah,
time,
it has
that means
nothing
that
in it.
Yeah.
as
So
soon
you have
as
to
the
redo
command
all
is
that.
met, you go back to idle.
Let me see if I can go back to those slides real
So
quick.
sometimes I think it's kind of weird
I feel
because
obligated
it's
to
too much function. The best way to
make
solve it,
my
like,
face
I think I remember this. I did like video editing, and it was kind of like keyframes.
I'll just leave it here
I
just
saw
in
that
case.
you already had exit time.
No problem.
Because it's
So,
not
like,
always.
But yeah, it looks like you got it. You just need to fix the animation. It looks like you should
Like
do
you
it.
will to move that longer, it will transition, but it will
Yes, we
do
should
this
do
one.
this. Oh my
You know what I mean?
god.
So if you go to, for example, idle, and then idle
Wait,
plus,
send a message.
the
Take
idle
a
will
picture.
take longer and the piece will be shorter. So it'll be like a
Sean,
more
please
idle oriented transition to keep.
Yeah.
Also, how? So does that mean like is it really?
No, this is mine.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I have to.
Well,
Like you have
what's
a
the
diagonal
difference?
thing.
I don't know. I just looked at the back, I'm like, what the hell's
No,
wrong with this?
I
moved this
because you're
stuff
right
here.
in this thing.
I switched the
So
settings.
something you can do, okay, cool.
Alright, so whose jacket is this? Riley's?
This is such a trippy flag. I hate this flag.
We need to high school.
Gosh, why are there
Oh,
so
this
many
is
pictures of
very
you
easy.
No, this is
Just the back.
just showing the animation workspace in Krita in our workshop.
So you give them the entire animation, or
Because,
just giving them sprites or like frames?
And I'm just showing how.
One good way to fix
Oh,
stuff
okay.
So I
like
don't
that
know how
is to
exactly
make
created
them
for,
have
like,
zero
Scramble
friction
state
mostly,
one.
or nothing's
Cause
different.
I know that right now we
We're
literally
making
just
them
teach
super,
animation
right?
controls
Like,
in Unity, so.
Because if you
Why don't you
and
just like, here's enough,
if you look at
wow,
your
they
player,
went crazy photoshopping has based on things
Um,
Just,
it's in here material, right? You have the default material. Let's say you were, you might run into this if you're making a
How
platform, and then there's a
dare
platform.
you. I have to open.
Oh, by the way, that's all, guys.
Oh, yeah.
So thanks for coming.
Put it on
And yeah,
It's idling.
There's no workshop.
hold on, I'll get back to you.
My workshop.